Hello everyone and welcome to the Low Budget Otaku, and today we have a review of the Sentinel 1 to 12 Devil May Cry 5 Dante, the most expensive figure that I ever reviewed in this channel. It is crazy expensive, 200 euros, at least for the special edition. But what can I say, I am a big Devil May Cry fan. And when I saw this figure, it was one of the best options that you can get, because there's not that many options of Devil May Cry. You have one very old NECA figure that I already reviewed in this channel before. And there's also some Play Art Sky from older games that are also very expensive. And then you also have Azumos, that is basically Hot Toys for Devil May Cry figures. They are even more expensive. Now, Devil May Cry has been one of my favorite series of all time, and maybe you can say that Dante is one of my favorite characters of all time, but I don't know if you can tell. I'm not sure. Maybe you can have that idea, especially on my Instagram page, that you should definitely follow. And of course, when Devil May Cry 5 was announced and released, it was a masterpiece, but it was also a love letter to the series that deserved action figures, and I was so happy when Sentinel decided to release not just one but two action figures, one from Dante and one from Nero. By the way, if you haven't played Devil May Cry 5, you are doing yourself a disservice. Go play that game. But if you're watching this review, probably you have. And before I finish this intro, I do think that we deserve a Trish and Lady figure from Sentinel. Sentinel, if you're hearing me, please do it.
Follow me. I'll cover you.
There's actually a normal version and a deluxe edition of both of these figures, and I got Dante's deluxe edition. And I gotta say, I love the external box. It is like an external cape for the box that you can remove, but it just gives it a little bit more life. And then you have the interior box, and I love this because it is amazing. It's a beautiful logo, amazing to take pictures with it. I just was very happy with overall packaging of the figure itself. And in the other side you have the figure exposed with all of the accessories. And again, I must repeat, this is the DX edition that brings at least 3 more accessories than the original one.
So we have a lot of accessories, but first impressions of the figure itself are a bit mixed bag, because I do love the coat, I do love the overall paint job that the figure has, but I do believe that the promotional material face looks better than the one it actually brings. It just doesn't look as good in my opinion. It's just not as well painted, especially the beard and the eyes. I do think the promotional material, it looks better than the real figure itself.
It clearly does not look like me.
It's a slight difference, but I think it's there. And when I take pictures of him in action poses and things like that, you will definitely notice more, because I cannot get any closer and focus than this.
Okay, so while taking pictures, the faces still started growing on me. They are not as bad as I initially thought.
Yeah, boy.
So it will limit a little bit this review in terms of if I get more close, it will completely unfocus. But overall, the rest of the look is great, and this jacket, of course, is real clothing. It's the only part that is real clothing, but overall it looks good, and it's bendy wired. So you can definitely bend it a little bit more, but there's some limitations. I do feel like some parts look like they're too big than they should be, because they're trying to do such a small version of the jacket. I think it's for someone who cosplays as this, it just looks too bulky for his size himself, but it still looks good. Overall, in terms of looks, everything is excellent, but I do think the face could have been better. Definitely not at Asmu's level, but Sentinel did an okay job. You can make him stand on his own, even though you do have a stand, and the stand is of course not the plug-in style of stand. It's the claw type of stand, But hey, it is what it is, and actually a good base surface. Looks premium. And it feels good. The articulation of the stand itself looks good. So it is a functional, and it has the Capcom logo there, stand, but I prefer plug-in stands. We do have two extra faces. I will again change the face later on and put them in to see how it looks, and it brings another set of hair. I don't know what is the big difference between them, but it does bring an extra set of hair for the back hair and the front hair. I don't know how the combinations will work out. But the star of the show is accessories, and we have, first of all, this I believe is exclusive to the DX edition. Indeed, is the Sparda sword, and this looks great, amazing. All of the detail in the sword itself looks fantastic. Now I don't think this part's unplugged so you can put the hands, and that actually is not a good system. If I'm mistaken, I will find out by the instruction manual, but I think you have to clip the hands here, and that's not ideal. Then we have this is the Dante sword. Now the Dante sword looks good, but I do think that one looks a little bit better. Now this sword has a part where you can clip it off and clip this new part in. Now why do you have that? That's to plug it on his back. So if you want to have the sword on his back, you need this part with a hole instead of that one. So nice little detail. And this guy here is the same thing. This is Rebellion. Rebellion is perfectly done. Great paint job overall. Loved it. And you have a small part that unclips, so you can clip it on his back, and that's around here, like this little part. You clip it off and you can plug it on his back. Then we have Kablooey. I think that's the name of the shotgun. It looks okay, looks fine. It's nothing too special of the shotgun, just looks okay. Overall, there's not a big magic to do in the shotgun. And then we have Ebony and Ivory, and these two I think are the disappointment. And let me tell you why. Because you don't have those small parts there, like the pictures of the ladies, no. And you don't have engravings, none of it. And I think that's a disappointment for a figure that costs 200 euros. What the hell? Really? Like, they look okay at the distance, but again, the small details that make up the figure are not here, and that's disappointing. And then we have these guys, and I think these are also part of the special edition only, and are the Cerberus different modes. So we have the fire mode, we have the nunchucks, they are like the lightning version. They look amazing. I love the shading. I love how the purple bleeds into the black. All of the detail is really well done. And then we have the ice version, and again the same detail with like this bluish bleeding a little bit out to the black. Just fantastic. Again, we have this little part here. When you don't have anything plugged to his back, you can use this to complete the jacket. And finally we have hands. And hands, we have these pose hands that he brings on. We have two grabby hands for the swords and for Cerberus, two pointing hands for the guns, and finally two fist hands. And that's all the hands that he brings. And finally we have an instruction booklet telling us what does he bring, how to work with that mechanism for implementing the sword on his back, how to cover up that little peg, how to change the hair parts, how to put the weapons on his hands, how to exchange hands, all those small things, and of course everything that he brings. Very simplistic instruction booklet, but does his job. First of all, we're going to remove the head, and we're going to try to open up this little hair part. And there we go. We're going to take this little part here and put it in the new hair piece. Gotta say, this is not the best system that I've seen so far. Not a big fan right now. Okay, you need to really pull this in, so when you try there, it will fit correctly, and finally close it down, and there you go. And we just exchange our faces to this smirking face. Not the best system in the world, but it works. It works fine. And let's take a look at that jacket situation. So we need to get some room here, and there you go. We have that little peg there that we need to pull in, and there you go. You only put this in without this peg being on. So this peg being on, you need to plug in a sword. There you go, you have a sword plugged in, and you can adjust it because the peg is adjustable, and that looks great. And again, you can put Rebellion if you want instead of Dante's sword, whatever sword you want. Okay, so one thing I forgot is you can actually also put a Sparda sword like the other swords, but unlike the other swords, you need to actually put the peg up instead of down, and you don't have to remove anything from the sword. The sword has the peg just molded in so well you barely can notice. It's right there, but you can again barely notice it, and it just plugs in his back, and there you go. You have your Sparda sword. In my opinion, is actually the best sword from the kit. Now let's take one of the guns and put it in one of his hands to see if it is easy, and it's actually very easy to do. No problems there. Let's try with a sword. Let's see how easy it is to plug in a sword in these hands. Now I, in my opinion, would have made one of these parts removable, and that's how we would plug in the sword, but they didn't do that, and in my opinion that's a big mistake. Definitely a big mistake. Not easy. And there you go. I put it in. It would have been so much easier if they had done as I said. Unfortunately they didn't, and these may help the hands get looser over time and make it harder to hold things. So not the best system in part of Sentinel. Now exchanging hands. Is this one like an easy pack to exchange hands? It looks a little bit fragile, so definitely be careful. Okay, at least connecting feels easy. Taking off feels a little bit more fragile, so I'll definitely advise some careful considerations while exchanging hands. Be very careful not to break those very small and fragile pegs.
So after some consideration and looking at the figure overall, I actually think this figure is really well done. But the highlight is definitely with action poses. When you pose this figure, it just looks great. You can replicate so many poses from the video game using this figure. I was actually really surprised. But did we say articulation?
And now comes the interesting part. Let your fingers get in there and have a good old rub-a-dub.
So let's look at his articulation, and we actually have like a very nice image of him that we can use for articulation purposes. And I'm going to post it somewhere to see if I got it right. So I'm actually not going to look at that image beforehand, and if I got it wrong I will correct myself using that image. But For now, what we have is a ball joint that connects to the head. There's no articulation on the neck, and that's actually a pity. Oh, I was wrong, there's articulation on the neck. It's so well hidden that I thought there was none. We have a simple ball joint on the head on top. That gives you great articulation, but the star here is actually the neck. Oh, hairpiece falling off. The hair permits great articulation and all looks very well hidden. Very good. Congratulations, that. And I think we have a ball hinge on the shoulder that allows us to articulate very well the arm, but of course the jacket gets a little bit in the way, so you need to know how to articulate through the clothing. And then I believe we have a double hinged elbow that gives you great articulation, more than 90 degrees, and that's very nice. And then we have a simple ball hinge on the hands, and this seems to be a bit fragile, so I actually am a bit disappointed that it didn't bring an extra ball hinge for these hands. That's a bit of a disappointment. Now here on the torso, this looks like it is a separate plastic part, because you do have a crunch, and I believe there's maybe a ball joint here and a ball joint here. That's the feeling I'm getting. You do swivel on top of the belt, very tight swivel. But again, I do believe this is just a floating piece, and we have ball joint and a ball joint here. So articulation in the torso is a little bit limited by this part. I do believe here they should have put us another real clothing shirt. That's a disappointment there. The pants, I do understand that this is better, but here a real piece of clothing would have completed so much better the overall look of the figure. And then here we have actually a very interesting and different combination of articulation that I'm not used to. I do believe here we have two ball joints like normal, but this little part here is actually in a hinge that allows us to spread without using these parts. So it's definitely one of the best spreads that I've seen so far. Good kick forward that is using this hinge here. So this is hinged, maybe, or in a ball joint. I'm confused. Either way, it does give you a great kick forward, a decent kick back. We have a double hinged knee. That, as you can see, allows great articulation there. And we have another weird one here in the boots. They're actually very interesting because we have a swivel on top of the boot. We have, I believe it is a ball hinge, or just a, yeah, I do believe it's a ball hinge here that allows us to go all the way there and front, and then pivot, an amazing pivot. One of the best pivots I've seen in a figure, and a toe bend.
Okay, so we're talking about Figma levels. No, even better than Figma levels of articulation. If we could peg them directly into a stand, god damn it, these would be almost perfect. But the next question is, of course, what about his size?
Yeah, boy.
NECA, Devil May Cry 1, Dante. SH Figure Arts, Cowboy Bebop, Spike Spiegel. Revoltech, Trigun, Nicholas D. Wolfwood. Figma, Fate Grand Order, Gilgamesh. Figma, ReZero, Ram. While I was reviewing this figure, I was actually feeling very conflicted because the figure overall looks so good, but sometimes looks so weird. And then I understood why. A lot of the look of him is actually the look of a video game, while the new Devil May Cry has the look of a realistic person, you know, real scanning of faces. And that's where the dissociation that I had came from. While this figure is very expensive, especially the deluxe edition, I still think this figure is amazing and I don't regret it, my decision to buy it, so it's getting my low budget otaku seal of approval. If you enjoyed this very crazy, long and detailed review, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and tell me in the comment section below what do you think about Devil May Cry 5, this figure, and I'm waiting for Sentinel Nero to review that baby too.
See you next time. Do it! Just do it!